Hello everybody, welcome to Spiritual Metaphysics 101. My name is Jerry Yakov and I'm your host. I'm also a student and teacher of metaphysics, and today the topic of our episode is the awakening mind. The awakening mind signifies to me the kind of life that I want to live. It's dedicated to an evolution of mind and happiness and joy, compassion. These are the kinds of things that I want to live more fully. I'm not sure why. I was just sharing with my wife, in my mind I'm always questioning, what is the purpose? What is the reason for the lifestyle, for the decisions that I make? And I think that the Zen approach, at least, the Zen Buddhist approach to that question would be stop questioning and simply be in the moment. Let the mind awaken. Let the mind encompass all the freedom that it involves. And I've got some wonderful readings. It's called Teachings of the Buddha. We'll be referring to this book today. How's that? Let's start with wakefulness, which is really the topic, the awakening of the mind. Wakefulness is the way to life. The fool sleeps as if he were already dead, but the master is awake, and he lives forever. He watches. He is clear. How happy he is, for he sees that wakefulness is life. How happy he is, following the path of the awakened. With great perseverance, he meditates, seeking freedom and happiness. Well, this is the answer to my initial question at the opening of the episode. What is this for? Why do I practice a lifestyle of the awakening mind? I mentioned compassion, I mentioned happiness, freedom, and I think this particular statement, which was taken from the Dhammamapada, translated by Thomas Byram, clearly says that it's a way of life, and that we want to be wakeful, we want to persevere, we want to meditate and seek freedom and happiness. And interestingly enough, just before we went on air, I asked my wife, what does she think the purpose of this teaching would be? And she said, I think you're teaching to learn exactly what you need to learn. And how truthful that is. I certainly want to be a master who is awake and lives forever. Living forever doesn't mean in the body, but it certainly does mean in the mindful spirit. That is immortal. That is eternal. And when we live that in an awakening state, and we are conscious, and we're deeply, deeply studying, so to speak, the depths of the soul and the depths of the existence that we are, we discover eternal life. And so we do live forever, and we watch, and we are clear. It's from a place of observation, isn't it? It's not from a place of doing. It's not from a place of acquisition. All that is left behind. Well, here's another reading that I think is on the topic of the awakening mind. It's called the luminous mind, synonymous to me with awakening, the luminous mind. Luminous is this mind, brightly shining, but it is colored by the attachments that visit it. This unlearned people do not really understand, and so do not cultivate the mind. Luminous is this mind, brightly shining, and it is free of the attachments that visit it. This the noble follower of the way really understands. For them there is cultivation of the mind. So again, we're looking at the essence of our beingness. And our essence is the mind, the awakening mind, the luminous mind, the Buddha mind, the path of purity. One of my other spiritual paths is A Course in Miracles, and it says an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. So we're interested in a purification process. And as the mind becomes more and more purified, then its luminosity shines, and the source of the light shines clearly through. And we are the vortex. We are the prism through which that light shines as the created. And the Creator, the Great One, the Holy One, shines through us. But we have to make our minds an open receptacle, an open prism. I like the analogy to a glass of water. When it's filled with debris, sand and so forth, nothing can shine through. But as the sediment settles, the water becomes clear. And the clear water is the illustration, if you will, of the clear mind, the luminous mind. Then light shines through the water, and we can see. Light shines through the luminous mind. Well, what is the sediment in the mind? The sediment in the mind is that which is undone through meditation, which is undone through mindfulness, which is undone through prayer. All of these venues, or means, if you will, allow us to clear the water, and then the luminosity shines through. Without that, our lives are unclear. And as it says in the first, I'll call these poems really, you know, if the sediment is not cleared away, the fool sleeps as if he were already dead. But the master is awake, and he lives forever. He watches. He is clear. Well, let's go on a little bit in these readings. I find this book extremely entertaining, illuminating, to use the word that we're trafficking in right now. It's extremely helpful in my practice. Here's another reading, poem, if you will, The Awakened. How joyful to look upon the awakened, and to keep company with the wise. Follow then the shining ones, the wise, the awakened, the loving, for they know how to work and forbear. But if you cannot find friend or master to go with you, travel on alone, like a king who has given away his kingdom, like an elephant in the forest. And if the traveler can find a virtuous and wise companion, let him go with him joyfully, and overcome the dangers of the way. Follow them, as the moon follows the path of the stars. This last reading, The Awakened, was taken from the Dhammapada, also translated by Thomas Byram. So we see a clear pattern, if you will, and that's the luminosity, the clarity, the correction, and the undoing of all the sediment, taking it and removing it. And we have to live our lives, if we're sincere and serious about the awakening and the enlightenment, we have to live our lives consistent with the Noble Truths. They help us so that we can live consistent with and think consistent with the clarity that we're seeking, that we're looking to become the Buddha, the Pure Land of the mind of the awakened. How do we do that but by emulating and living that way consistently, as often and as concisely and vigilantly as we can? We'll take a look at the next reading, and we'll clarify some of the Noble Truths. We're talking about living consistent with the Pure Land and the awakened mind. Here are the 5 precepts. First, for the purpose of training, I vow to refrain from taking life. Secondly, for the purpose of training, I vow to refrain from taking what is not given. Third, for the purpose of training, I vow to refrain from sexual misconduct. Fourth, for the purpose of training, I vow to refrain from false speech. And 5, for the purpose of training, I vow to refrain from intoxicants which lead to carelessness. These 5 precepts are a vehicle of happiness, a vehicle of good fortune, a vehicle for liberation. Let our virtue therefore be purified and shine forth. Well, there's the reference to purification again, and the shining which comes forth as we vow to refrain from killing, from taking life. We vow to refrain from taking what is not given to us by stealing, by taking, by trickery, by in some way being more clever and taking what others would not give us, training to vow from refraining from sexual misconduct, being in a committed relationship, a relationship that is public, so to speak, with family and friends, and one that is a commitment to the other person. And we have a vow to refrain from false speech. Here we're speaking that which would be praiseworthy, not gossiping, not talking negatively about people, not slandering. I like the use of the word vow because monks take vows, nuns take vows, don't they? And so can we. We as the everyday householder, the everyday lay person, we have no less an obligation to the awakening mind. And we take a vow to refrain from intoxicants, which leads to carelessness. Well, let's go on with the Noble Truths so that we understand how it is that we can live the awakening mind. Okay, this is entitled The Noble Eightfold Path, and this way leads to the extinction of suffering. Namely, 1, right understanding, 2, right thought, 3, right speech, 4, right action, 5, right livelihood, 6, right effort, 7, right mindfulness, and 8, right concentration. I want to pick one of them, and that's right mindfulness. And I think that that would encompass all of the others: understanding, thought, speech, action, livelihood, effort, concentration. If we're living a mindful lifestyle, if we're living to be mindful in the moment, then we're aware. We're practicing skillfulness. And everything that we do would reflect this. I like an example of preparing dinner. We're cutting the vegetables mindfully. We're doing it with an aware state of mind. When we're walking to the car, we do this with mindfulness. When we're eating, it's very important to be mindful with every bite that we take. It's important to be mindful in our conversations. This refers to the right speech. If we're deeply listening, and we're also speaking without slander and criticism or judgment, then we're being mindful, and we consider the other person, and we're compassionate. So the eightfold path leads to the extinction of suffering. And then the 5 precepts lead to the awakening mind. But it's all the same. It all is a vow that we take to live consciously and awarely and mindfully. Well, back to some of these readings. Let's go on to the next one. This is called Master Your Senses. And again, I think it's consistent with mindfulness and being awake. Master your senses. What you taste and smell, what you see, what you hear. In all things be a master of what you do and say and think. Be free. Are you quiet? Quiet your body. Quiet your mind. By your own efforts, waken yourself, watch yourself, and live joyfully. Follow the truth of the way. Reflect upon it. Make it your own. Live it. It will always sustain you. And the way is consistent with your spiritual path. And this can be a theology that you follow, a spirituality that you follow, a set of precepts and vows that you've taken. Whatever it is that works for you and resonates in your heart of hearts, this is what you want to practice every day, in addition to the normalcy of your everyday life. Your everyday life will fit into the vows that you take. A teacher of mine years ago said, we are the stand that we take. We are the vows that we take. And when we do take the stand and we do take the vows to live consistently with the Buddha and the Christ and the Tao, then we know that we're living and not harming other things. We're living consistent with a promise not to slander other people, to live happily, to live without sexual misconduct or intoxicants. These are all things that are a process. Conceitedly, some of us may not be able to step into these precepts and these vows 100% all the time. But the truth is that life is a process. And we're practicing these precepts and these eightfold noble paths so that we don't have to come back and live another classroom of process. We undo the process by living the vows. Once the process is complete, then we know fulfillment. We know full waking. We are the awakened mind. And then we fully teach, either by example in another body or without the body. But we're always present to be another teacher and extend the vows and to extend the truth. Because the next set of people, generationally, ancestrally, everybody needs to learn. And those that missed have another opportunity. And those that are coming along have the next opportunity. And who is that will teach them? We will. The Buddha and the Christ of the Tao teach. The Krishna teaches. That is the function of the interbeingness that we're learning. We are all one in that interbeingness and interdependency. It's not a codependency where we're seeking to take from one another. It's an interdependency where we're giving. And in that giving, of course, we receive. Back to my wife's comment, the purpose of these episodes really is so that I can give and receive that which I need to sustain and to grow within my mind. And what is it that's growing within my mind but the awakening, the clarity, the sediment is distilling out of the water, and the water becomes clear. We'll go on to the next reading now. And this one is entitled Sutra on Full Awareness of Breathing. And I wanted to mention the importance of breathing again. This has come up time and time again. The breath is a connection between the mind and the body, so that we have an opportunity to remain wakeful or to become wakeful. If I notice that my attention is lagging, if I notice that I'm in a torpor, if I'm somewhat lethargic, then the breathing becomes important. Nothing more than that. Thinking is not important at this point. I'm simply focusing on the breath. And the meditation becomes important as well. I can simply sit in breathing meditation and focus on the breath. Let me read something from another book that I have by Thich Nhat Hanh, and then we'll get back to this particular one about breathing too. Here, this is Thich Nhat Hanh, the pocket edition of his wisdom. And in that, he writes under seeds, the purpose of meditation is to look at something deeply and see its roots. We'll be able to recognize the seed of that action. That seed may come from our ancestors, and it may become habit energy in us. It pushes us to do things without our being aware, so that it is a seed, a habit energy. With mindfulness, we can become aware of the habit energy. We can become aware without judgment. We can be aware and begin to transform and let go of the habit energy with the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness and concentration will help us to look and find the roots of our action. And it's so important that when we're aware, we're more intentional with our thoughts and our speech and our actions. And tying in the notion of breathing with mindfulness, this is called Mindfulness of Breath, again from the Thich Nhat Hanh Pocket Edition. The way to maintain your presence in the here and now is through mindfulness of the breath. There is no need to manipulate the breath. Breath is a natural thing, like air, like light. We should leave it as it is and not interfere with it. What we are doing is simply lighting up the lamp of awareness to illuminate our breathing. We generate the energy of mindfulness to illuminate everything that is happening in the present moment. practicing breathing mindfully, without discrimination, the quality of your breathing improves. It becomes calm, and breath is longer and gentler, and there's a harmony generated by your breathing that penetrates into your body and into your mental formations. Mindful breathing will become deeper and more gentle. Mindful breathing is a kind of bridge that brings the body and the mind together. If through mindfulness of the breath you generate harmony, depth, and calm, these will penetrate into your body and mind. In fact, whatever happens in the mind affects the body. If you generate peacefulness in your breathing, that peacefulness permeates your body and your state of mind. Peace is contagious. Happiness is also contagious because of the practice of meditation, the three elements of body, mind, and breath becoming one. And then he concludes this by saying, the in-breath moves inward, our out-breath moves outward, in and out. It's child's play, but it provides a great deal of happiness. During the time you are doing it, there is no tension at all. You are here for life. And if you are here for life, life will be here for you. It's simple. Well, back to our book on Teachings of the Buddha, edited by Jack Kornfield. This is a sutra on full awareness of breathing. The 7 factors of awakening, if developed and practiced continuously, will give rise to understanding and liberation of the mind, which is the topic, the awakening mind. And here's a practice that we can do. I am breathing in and making my whole body calm and at peace. I am breathing out and making my whole body calm and at peace. This is how one practices. I am breathing in and feeling joyful. I am breathing out and feeling joyful. This is how one practices. I am breathing in and feeling happy. I am breathing out and feeling happy. One practices like this. I am breathing in and am aware of the activities of the mind in me. I am breathing out and am aware of the activities of the mind in me. One practices like this. I am practicing and breathing in and making activities of the mind in me calm and at peace. I am aware of my mind. Breathing in, I am aware of my mind. Breathing out, I am aware of my mind. One practices like this. I am breathing in and liberating my mind. I am breathing out and liberating my mind. One practices like this. I am breathing in and observing the impermanent nature of all dharmas. I am breathing out and observing the impermanent nature of all dharmas. One practices like this. So the nature of our meditation can simply be the following of the breath. We don't necessarily have to focus on the issues of joy and happiness and the Dharma and concentration, so to speak. I am breathing in and contemplating liberation. I am breathing out and contemplating liberation. One practices like this. I am breathing in and contemplating letting go. I am breathing out and contemplating letting go. One practices like this. And in conclusion, it says, the full awakening of breathing, if developed and practiced continuously, according to these instructions, will be rewarding and of great benefit. The awakening of the mind. Well, our final reading will be entitled Inclination of Mind. Others will be cruel, we shall not be cruel. Thus one should incline the mind. Others will kill living beings. We shall abstain from killing living beings. Thus one should incline the mind. Others will take what is not given. We shall abstain from taking what is not given. Others will engage in inappropriate sexuality. We shall abstain from inappropriate sexuality. Others will speak falsehoods. We will abstain from false speech. Others will speak maliciously. We will refrain from malicious speech. Others will gossip. We shall abstain from gossip. Others will be envious. We shall not be envious. Others will be avaricious. We shall not be avaricious. Others will be fraudulent. We shall not be fraudulent. Others will be arrogant. We shall not be arrogant. Others will be unmindful. We shall be established in mindfulness. Others will lack wisdom. We shall cultivate wisdom. And the cultivation of wisdom comes through mindfulness. Thus one should incline the mind. Well, this concludes the readings from Teachings of the Buddha, and also the reference that I made to the pocket edition of Thich Nhat Hanh. I think that, again, the trend is very clear. We're to purify the mind as we clarify the water that we drink. It wouldn't be drinkable water if the sediment and the problems with the water itself were not removed. And this is the process that we live, the process of taking vows. We can take the vows within ourselves, of course, but it's also useful to take vows in the company of other people. Congregations and fellowships do that. Sanghas do that. Families can do that. Couples can do that. Parents and children can do that. Grandparents and children can do that. Children and their parents can do that. Strangers can do that with one another. I think it's so important that we view everybody as part of the vows that we take. Whether they've thought it through mindfully or not, we can see them as a participant in the vows that we've taken. They are a relationship in which we can practice the vows that we've taken. It's so important that we collaborate with everybody so that we know the importance of collaboration, of interbeingness, the oneness that transcends all separation. And the separation is the problem. The disparity between people and thoughts, the disparate things in the world. When we know that everything is interbeing, interdependent, then the kindness and the compassion and the vows become so important. This is what we're teaching, and I hope that it's been at least made a little bit more clearer in today's episode. I really enjoy the readings that I've been sharing with you. I've been reading it as of late, and I'm going to continue to be reading these and some of the other readings that Jack Kornfield has edited. And maybe in future episodes I can share them with you. But in the meantime, I want to close this episode reminding us to be mindful, reminding us to be awake in the Buddha and the Tao and the Christ. Namaste, shalom, and peace. And we'll see you next time.